So we can hold off a little. It's not quite 5 yet, so we can hold off a little,
Yeah,
but at least it's all set up.
fair enough. I've got a bit of a headache actually. I think I took too many vitamins. So
Vitamin.
so I've got like some magnesium, I've got vitamin C with zinc, I've got vitamin D, and I there was this other stuff that I bought, ashwagandha, something or other. It's coming from a mushroom, and L-theanine. So I just took all of that, but I think maybe the combination is
Why were you taking so many different things? Is that
just
just
for
normal?
the vitamin C, I have found since I've been taking vitamin C consistently, like viral illness is just bouncing off me. I might have the sniffle for a day, but I don't get ill. And obviously, I'm coming into co contact with flu and COVID almost on a daily basis. Um, the vitamin D, because vitamin D, and obviously I started in the winter months, so we're getting a lot more sun now. The omega-3 oils, because they help with reducing hypertriglyceridemia, and in terms of like um, secondary prevention for ischemic heart disease in people who have had strokes or like MIs, so it's good for that. What else am I taking?
Magnesium.
Magnesium, because I just read a thing that's like, oh, you should take magnesium. So like, let's give it a go. I give I give it a go, see what happens. But it's supposed to be good for sleep. I don't know that I'm necessarily sleeping better, um, but I'm sleeping well. So, um, I'm happy to pay for placebo, to be honest with you.
Have you like always struggled with sleep? Like when you
Not
started working
always,
as well?
not always, but like I know that if when I do struggle, it's because I'm mentally, busy and
Hmm.
having, there's something in one of my hairs is in my peripheral vision, like sticking out here, and I'm trying to, trying to get it. But yeah, so I know that when I am stressed, I have difficulty either getting to sleep or more frequently waking up in the middle of the night and having difficulty getting back to sleep.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that happens. I think I've sort of like when as soon as I got out of hospital, my sleep was a lot better.
Yeah,
But for me, it was just like nights and stuff and long
yeah,
days and eating rubbish. So
yeah.
probably I think if I was like better with my sort of lifestyle back when I was a bit younger, I would have been fine.
Yeah. I think that's the thing though, like, some of the stuff you look at and it's the branches, it's not the root. And if you're not careful, you can focus on that and be like, oh, you know, um, even in the context of like, don't get me wrong, the NHS is leaves a lot to be desired. But I think that, you know, what if we were better at learning our coping mechanisms and stuff, it would still be bad, but it
Mm.
wouldn't necessarily affect us in the same way and might give us the ability to engage or fight in a way that, has longevity, because I just think it's a shame that it's the NHS is chewing people up and spitting them spitting them out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and
That's
I think that's has much to do with the fact that it isn't fit for purpose, as well as a society, we're not good at taking care of ourselves. So put yourself in any stressful situation, whether it's NHS or whatever, then coping becomes an issue. And we could
Mm.
blame the thing. And I think we should definitely point out where there's problems. And with that, also say, well, how good am I at dealing with, you know, pressure and stuff and issues?
Yeah, I think we just don't prioritize ourselves
Yeah.
because it just feels like you can always, figure your own stuff out
Yeah,
at
yeah.
some other point where when you're not dealing with like life-threatening emergencies,
Yeah, yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? Okay.
The I did a talk for the Caribbean African Health Network yesterday, actually, just talking about my experience as a doctor and a patient who had a stroke. And it's like, like so doctors aren't good. We're the worst patients. Men, we're not good at being patients, and black people. So like there was
Perfecto.
the trifecta of things that might have contributed to me not necessarily jumping in or seeking help earlier.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an important lesson. And I suppose if people see that you are, talking about that and reflecting on what you've learned, it's going to help like three different categories of
Yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That was my, resolution at the end of it. Who, not to sound big-headed, but who better than me?
Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't look like, oh, I understand why this guy had a stroke. Somebody, something like that. And on top of that, like I'm a Christian and my parents are pastors, so because even in communities of faith, there's a big stigma and a big misunderstanding about like how to interact with healthcare and stuff in some places.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
who better than me? Maybe that's why. Um, but yeah, it's five.
Let's start.
It's five. Let's go. So welcome everybody. Welcome. You are welcome to episode 11 of Real Coaching. I am Dr. Ayo Olatoye. I'm my esteemed colleague,
I'm Dr. Lewis Thomas. Hello, everyone.
sponsored by Kajabi today.
Oh,
And so we're gonna do something slightly different today. Real coaching, the premise of it is that both of us are coaches and we love comics and we want to talk to people about the life lessons you can learn through the story arcs in comics. And we've done the Iron Man's MCU journey from self-centered to self-sacrificing hero. If you're listening live, please put a fire in the chat or say hello and tell us where you're listening from. We'd love to get involved and interact with you. If you have any questions, please let us know. But today, you are gonna find out about us. So we're not talking about Iron Man or anybody, any other comments. We're going to talk about the two heroes that are in front of you right now. So we're gonna spend half an hour finding out about Dr. Lewis and half an hour finding out about me and how we've got here. So, um, are you okay for me to interview first, bro?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Fire away.
Okay, so Dr. Lewis Thomas, this is your life.
Okay,
And
okay,
and
I'm
and
ready.
and here's your wife. No, I'm only joking. Right, okay, so I want to like get into the why. So talk to me about like growing up. Dr. Ellen, how are you?
Growing up.
How are you? Thank
Okay.
you for joining live. So
Hi,
yeah, sorry.
Ellen.
Tell me about your life. Tell me about your beginnings.
So going all the way back to the very beginning. Okay, well, I suppose I've always been quite a deep thinker, even as a child. Um, and always been kind of the kind of person who likes to plan ahead and have a plan. So, I did pretty well in school. Um, I think I had, a lot of ambitions, and my parents were quite like supportive in terms of, the whole education, get education. Like there was a strong sort of value there. Um, it's like so me, both my parents, I have a younger brother, and me and my younger brother were always sort of told like work hard, and you'll be successful in whatever you want to do, and like very much like you can do what you want to do. There's no kind of limitation. So um I had my heart set on medicine, which kind of came as a result really of me having my own chronic illness, sickle cell anemia.
Mm.
So yeah, I have sickle cell hemoglobin C, which means that I occasionally have sickle cell crises, which basically causes a lot of pain in the joints and muscles for anyone listening not familiar. And these kind of crises happen to me like a couple of times a year. So I was in hospital for about 10 days when I was 12 as my first admission. And that is where I kind of came into contact with, the healthcare profession, doctors, nurses, and that had like a big impact on me in terms of uh, what I wanted to do in the future. So um, I guess combining that with just I wouldn't I didn't like school. Like I really didn't like school. Like I didn't like the structure and having to conform to syllabuses that I didn't care about and stuff like that. But I knew that it was, kind of what you had to do. So anyway, yeah, had my mission to apply for medicine, did all that. So I guess everything else sort of up to that point was just kind of like work. I did actually, I'll say this as well, because I'm quite sporty. And I really enjoyed playing basketball when I was younger. So at one point I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player. And had dreams of being in the NBA. But then obviously when you have sickle cell, it's really difficult to
Yeah.
maintain, that, be an elite athlete. So I went through this period actually, um, where I kept having sickle cell crises, whilst I was training, up to sort of the level of preparing for England trials. And I think at that point I got injured. So I had to I injured my knee, had Osgood-Schlepp's disease, and I had to like sort of sit out for a year or so anyway. And then it was after that, whenever I tried to get back fit again, I was rushing. I was trying to get in. I was trying to keep up with all of my teammates, and I just kept pushing myself too far, having sickle cell crisis. Um, so this is kind of where I had to deal with that kind of letting
Yeah.
go of that idea
Mm.
of, like being like strong and fit and healthy, and accept that I was, someone who was actually going to have to live my life differently, even though I looked like everyone else. I was hanging out with everyone who's doing all these exercise and sports and stuff, and I just wanted to be like that, and I could to an extent,
Yeah.
which was like very difficult because I could do it, but then I'd end up suffering afterwards. Um, and that kind of went on as well during uni, without going into too much detail, but like I played basketball in uni, and I, got involved with all the social activities in uni. And yeah, that didn't end well on quite a few
Okay.
occasions.
Did you have the work hard, play hard thing that might
Work hard, play hard, medic mentality. Yeah, that was ingrained into me.
yeah.
So so yeah, I suppose um going back to kind of getting into medicine through med school, I started as a junior doctor. And as a junior doctor, I feel like it was very much kind of like the only good thing about it that I felt was that I actually had a job, because it was brutal. It was like being an F1 was probably one of the hardest years of my life. Um, and I suppose it was worse as well because I had to go to Dundee. So in my year, I ended up messing up the sort of, it's called the situational judgment test, where
Okay.
everyone final year has to do this like a ranking test essentially. And I just completely messed up the test and ended up getting like one of my last choices.
Yeah.
So I was like so far from home in Dundee, and the stress and the changes and everything just ended up being really tough. On top of that, once I'd started working, my threshold for having sickle cell crisis actually reduced.
Mm.
So I found that I'd just be doing like my normal kind of exercise routines and trying to maintain that level because it's what
Yeah.
I've always done. But I kept having sickle cell crises.
Wow. Okay.
So I really felt like it was because I was so stressed from
Yeah.
the work of being a doctor. So that
Yeah.
just kind of like added to the whole, you know, negativity about being a junior doctor and about training. By the way, stop me at any point if you have
I
any
was I
questions.
was gonna say, so first thing I'm gonna acknowledge the people that are listening live. Hello, Dr. Ellen. Hello, Emma. Hello, Philippe. Hello, Sakinat. Thanks so much for joining us live. I
Thank
really
you,
appreciate
thank
your
you.
time. And if you have any questions for Dr. Lewis or myself, then please just put them in the chat. We'll get to them. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing that journey. I mean, it sounds pretty harrowing, like dealing with medicine is hard enough. Dealing with an illness that can rear its head at any time, and unfortunately, you're in a stressful job, and stress can bring it on. It's tough. It's tough. Hello, Victoria Answer. Nice to see you. So
Hi,
you're a,
everyone.
I have two questions. So when did you get introduced to comics? No, question number one. And question number two is when did you start thinking about coaching?
Okay. So comics probably when I was a kid. But I never read the like Marvel comics. I just watched all of the like any superhero show, like kids show. So like Spider-Man and X-Men Evolution. Uh
Not even the original X-Men.
well, I watched the original X-Men. I don't know why I said X-Men Evolution, but
Okay, I was
like
gonna say.
you know, it's difficult because we're different. I forget we're different ages.
Yeah,
Um,
some of us are older than.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I really liked X-Men Evolution. I've watched the original X-Men and like Superman. I never really liked Batman as much, but I watched that. So then I've just always really enjoyed like superheroes with different powers.
Mm,
Static Shock comes to mind as well.
yeah,
I don't know if you know Static Shock.
yeah,
Um, so anyway, yeah, I think it's because especially with the X-Men, like I saw myself in them a little bit because
yeah,
the whole like mutation, I
yeah,
got like it in my head that, sickle cell is a genetic
yeah,
mutation.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it was just it was just really like fascinating to me that
yeah.
it could produce something that is like generating power,
Mm,
and all these amazing abilities. And I just really like resonated with that. And then I think it's just kind of like the whole hero's journey
Yeah.
that plays out in comics
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
is always just something that I've resonated with as well. So yeah.
Emma's put a comment in here. It says it must have been so hard dealing with that. This is the sickle cell and the, going to medical starting in Dundee, so far away from your support network.
Yeah, it was tough, like, but after a few months, I think I settled in. And it was just unfortunate that I had the sickle cell crisis in like that first few months.
Yeah, yeah,
And like it was fine. Like my parents came up, um, and eventually I sort of settled in. So yeah, thanks for saying that anyway. With the with the coaching, like how did I get into coaching?
yeah,
Um, it's kind of tied to medicine, obviously, because I kind of alluded to the fact that I was, feeling very negative about medicine from the start, um, because of the stress and because it just wasn't what I expected. I
yeah,
felt very much like I needed to do something else to help people, essentially. And then there was quite a lot of a big delay because I wanted to complete training. So I ended up going into GP and completing training as a GP. And I was also um, very scared. There was a lot of fear of sort of like doing something else after I'd been on that path for so long.
yeah, yeah.
So um, I
But I mean,
had to.
how did you even get introduced to the concept of okay, there is this thing called coaching or
So I got burnt out as a GP and I had coaching myself.
right? Okay.
And at first I was just kind of like, oh, I don't need it. Like I can figure out, what to do myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So I waited a few months. I think it was my appraiser, my GP appraiser that recommended having some coaching.
Mm.
And yeah, I eventually just thought it can't hurt to try it. And I really liked it, just being able to talk freely and have someone listen and reflect your own thoughts back to you.
Yeah,
And it's just like it just felt like a really safe space. So that was my experience, which then I kind of parked and carried on GPing. And then it was only when I was speaking to another GP who was kind of like a mentor, he had suggested, why don't I do coaching? Um,
okay.
and then I thought back to that experience and was like, yeah, that would be pretty interesting to do that because I'm like interested, I'm naturally sort of like interested in counseling and psychology and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just, like to have deep conversations with people.
yeah, yeah,
So I found out, I found a coaching diploma, did a taster, like attended a webinar and essentially learned that everything that I'd enjoyed as a GP, because I did enjoy GP a little bit, it wasn't completely rubbish. But everything I loved about being a GP was what coaching is. So
right. Okay.
essentially just helping people transform their lives and just I think I love that transformation um and the kind of motivation aspect of it.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, that was the introduction to coaching. That was what led me to do the diploma and just get more and more um passionate really about helping people and like feeling like, oh, there's other ways to help people other than being a
Being a
doctor.
doctor, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really cool. I mean, I think we've talked about this before, and I think like I know a lot of people who are in a similar position where there is a sense of service or a desire to serve, And because of exposure or lack of exposure, you can only think about one way of doing it. So it's medicine or it's being a teacher, and um, when you do some digging and some investigation, you realize actually the thing I want to do is help, but there's lots of other ways of doing that. I think there is, and the good thing about it is that you came across coaching to say, okay, actually, this is a way that I can channel my energies. And I love the fact that you said, actually, the thing I liked about the coaching or the GP, I can apply
Yeah.
that in coaching. It makes me think of two things that I've come across in my personal development. So the phrase, nothing is wasted, I really
Oh
love
yeah.
that because sometimes I think there's this concept in terms of where we are today in terms of hustle culture of like you have to get now and now and now and
Yeah.
everything has to be a rush and I don't think it's helpful. It hasn't been helpful to me anyway. And I think that one of my mentors said to me, if it's not the thing, it's the thing that leads to the thing, and sometimes just staying in a situation wondering what am I gonna do
Mm.
isn't helpful, and just taking a step forward and let me just try this, and seeing. So
Yeah. I think yeah, you're right. Like there's this sense of urgency that
mm,
it's just baked into the culture over like everything. So, if you imagine you're already a doctor and you've done like all this
yeah,
training, and then the thought of change, you're automatically viewing that through a lens of it has to happen now, like,
yeah,
and it's just so much pressure and it
yeah,
just feels so hard to do that, especially when you've trained in something for 10 years or whatever, and
yeah,
it's your life. Um, but that was the beauty of coaching. So I think when I started coaching, I wasn't 100% like, oh, I'm going to start a coaching business.
yeah,
And, I didn't want to be a GP anymore, but it wasn't like I was quitting and, just canceling my GMC registration straight
yeah, yeah,
away. But it was the coaching that helped me see that change is like is a process
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that you can break down into these small little chunks
yeah,
and just keep doing it bit by bit. And that's what, as I was sort of learning about more and more about coaching, I was like realizing myself,
mm,
oh, okay, I just basically applying everything to myself in
yeah,
order to go through that transformation, that transition from GP to life coach.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I mean some of the circles that I've mixed in, there are so many people who talk about the thing that they build that helps society often comes from a personal pain. This thing affected me, so I couldn't find kids baby food. So I started doing baby food and people started buying it and now I have a baby food, business or whatever. And for you, you needed the coaching, you saw the benefit in it, you used the principles, you transformed and you were like, what? This is a great way to help people. We've got a message from Dr. Ellen who she says while you were talking, I think this session was meant for me. So she's already got some
Yeah.
value from from what you're saying. So let's keep going. So we're in transition. Talk to me about medicine has was the goal. Coaching is now the goal, and exiting medicine is the route to, to get there. Talk to me about the mindset shift or um the things that you had to wrestle with to go from I'm definitely doing this, I'm definitely going.
Yeah. I guess it's the identity. So
Mm,
your identity when you've been a doctor for like your whole working life or like in medicine with this one goal is completely tied up in your job.
yeah,
And that was tough to kind of let go of that because you you're then left thinking like, what am I if I'm not a doctor? Um, and you have to do some soul searching
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
really figure that out
Yeah.
and appreciate that you're a unique human being
Yeah.
with your own sort of like passions and goals
Yeah.
and desires that just don't really align with the the kind of fixed system of being a doctor.
Mhm.
So I think you have to really sort of contend with all of these like program conditioned messages that are telling you um, you have to be a doctor in order to be valued, or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you're not a doctor, you're nothing.
Yeah.
And people will just like question you, like, oh my God, what are you doing like with your life? Don't do it, don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of that you have to build up this kind of resilience
Mm.
against, which you do by basically connecting to your own values and appreciating. This is the other point I wanted to say is that there's nothing wrong with you. It's the system that's broken. So like you're not broken. It's the system that's broken and just this is my this is the way I've dealt with it. Just in terms of being overworked and overloaded as a GP and burning out, trying to maintain this kind of inhuman level of work effort, and just feeling that I've I've been doing this for a while and I know I'm pretty good at it, but I'm still feeling like I'm failing
Yeah.
people because I'm not really helping them. And it's kind of the mindset shift is shifting from it's not me, it's the system.
Mhm.
It's the system that I'm in, and that's just going to continue making me feel like a failure when I'm not. I'm very successful. I just need to be in an environment that I can control and that brings out my unique talents, which is, sometimes you just have to create that for yourself rather
Yeah.
than looking for it in jobs that already
Absolutely.
exist or, in
Absolutely.
LinkedIn.
We've had two comments. So Sakinat says, I love your approach to life. Life is not static anyways. Mindset shift. And then Emma said, absolutely, the system it's a system that's broken, you know? And I think
Yeah.
it seems that people are really resonating with what you're who you're saying and your journey.
Yeah, I've spoken to Emma about this on her podcast as well. So,
Right.
um, yeah, we had a chat about that before. So that's cool. It's just it really is just I think getting that confidence and belief in yourself, um, and appreciating that it will grow over time.
Yeah.
So if you just stick to doing something that you feel like strongly about, which I did with coaching, and just taking all these like little tiny steps, like writing on Twitter, like I was writing little sort of short form inspirational um you know short form messages on Twitter and putting that out there and no one was seeing it,
Yeah.
and just just doing that and
Yeah.
finding other people as well. That was the key, I think, um, because I realized that you can't really shift your mindset. Well, it's a lot harder to shift your mindset when you're surrounded by people who are of one mind,
Yeah.
uh, and are going to be just constantly conflicting with you and what you feel you want. That's what makes it feel like, oh, I'm the weird guy. But when you go online and you start being open and sharing yourself, just like we're doing here, like people are resonating, and that's very empowering because it's like, oh, I'm not alone
Yeah, exactly.
anymore. There are other
Exactly.
people that think like this.
Yeah.
They're just people that don't happen, that they're not in my sort of direct vicinity.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that kind of community and finding the right people helped me a lot.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we switch gears and then you you can ask me some questions? Because we also wanted to give you guys who were listening a bit of a backdoor access to the production of real coaching. So we wanted to
Production,
maybe
yes.
spend 5 minutes at the end maybe talking to you about all the what not to do's. If you wanted to start a LinkedIn Live podcast. So yeah, anything else you wanted to talk about of your journey, or are we going to switch gears and you can ask me some questions?
I don't think so. Like, yeah, I think I've shared most of this on through my posts and content anyway.
Yeah,
So yeah, if I think of anything, I'll say, but let's move on. So uh tell us about your beginnings. Like,
yeah.
what was life for you during childhood and growing up?
Yeah, so I am one of three. I'm the middle child. I don't know whether you noticed. Not everyone's thinking, "Oh, everything it's all becoming clear." Yeah, so I'm I'm a middle child. I'm one of three boys. I was born in Nigeria. I came here when I was 5. And for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a doctor. Now, I thought it was my mum was ill when I was around 12, and I thought that that's what inspired me to do medicine. But I met some friends from primary school, and they were like, "No, no, you wanted to be a doctor since primary school." So now I've been a doctor for so long, I don't remember why. I just wanted to be a doctor. Now the interesting thing is obviously being Nigerian. Most people talk about like Nigerian parents being having careers conversations, which are one of three options. Medicine, lawyer, or engineer, or something like that. Um, Now I never remember any pressure from my parents at all about you've got to do this, you've got to do that. I think they just wanted me to do something that was able to use my gifts and made me happy and honored God, because my parents are Christians, so most of my life they were pastors. So service was a big thing in our house. Um, so when we grew up in Hume in Manchester, which it's not, it's a, I suppose, place of lower socioeconomic
I'm
environment.
not far from him actually.
Oh yeah. Um, so
Lineage.
yeah, lived in Hume, primary school. Again, all when people have these things about, oh, what do I do at A level or GCSE? I never had that because I knew the goal. I knew where I wanted to get to. Medicine was always the thing. So I chose my GCSEs, to get me where I wanted to go. I chose my A levels to get me where I wanted to go. And I passed medicine by God's grace, by the skin of my teeth. Because I was a mature student. We don't have time today to talk about my journey to medicine, but that isn't a podcast in itself. So I applied 3 times, and each time you apply for 5 medical schools, and I only ever had one interview. In so and obviously I got it. I was at Manchester Medical School, so I'm saying that to encourage somebody to be like, it doesn't matter how many people tell you no. Now,
Mhm.
it's about who tells you yes. One of the things I remember talking to people about in this journey when I've been coaching people is that sometimes we worry about how long it's taken us or how many times it's taken us or the number of failures that we've got. And the analogy I give is when you pull up to somebody at the traffic lights, you know what? I've never thought to ask them how many times it took them to pass the driving test. It doesn't matter. So as long as you get that one,
Right.
you just keep going till you get that one. So I went to medical school. And because I was a mature student, so even in medical school, I wasn't working hard, played hard. I lived at home. Like I said, my parents are Nigerian pastors, so I didn't have the typical uni experience. And I I started to work towards developing my career. I actually wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. That's a kids doctor who deals with children who have cancer. And my first job was adult medicine. I just fell in love with medicine.
Mm.
I was one of those strange doctors who liked to be on call. I liked to be the first person at a problem to be able to say, I think the problem is this. So that's why acute medicine was a thing that I liked. And basically, I had to come out of training because I was married and I had three kids. And I don't know when you know this, but kids need clothes and like food and stuff. And being the sole breadwinner of a pretty big family, so it was difficult financially. So I had to step out of training to take care of the family because there were days when I was doing a day shift, I'd do a twilight shift, and then I'd go back and do a day shift, and I would do that maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and it was a lot. And the I realized that if I became a locum, which is a contract essentially, I could do less hours and earn the same. So I did that, and then I again, there's another long story about working in ambulatory care, and that's now my passion. And I applied for a locum consultant job, and I've been a consultant since 2018. Now, I moved hospitals in 2019. I mean, again, stop me anytime if any of this is going too fast. I moved hospitals in 2019. No, at the beginning of 2020, and that's when the COVID pandemic obviously started, and I had a stroke in June of 2020, and my dad died in 2020. So 2020 was a pretty eventful year, and lots of things happened that some of the questions that you were talking about in terms of like who am I, what am I going to achieve in the world, all of that kind of made me answer those questions. Then I think I'm pretty introspective anyway. I'm a pretty deep thinker. Some people complain that you can't do small talk with me because I'm always thinking about the other layer and stuff like that. Um, and I had to answer some really fundamental questions about who am I? I was 39 at the time. What do I want the rest of my life to be? I'm by God's grace, I'm gonna live to 80 or 90. So what's the next half of my
Mm.
life gonna be about? And I really and again I had to be off work for 6 weeks after the stroke. So I took some time to really, really think and reevaluate a lot of things. And the first place I landed was, well, I need to find ways of making money that don't involve me spending exchanging my time because when I wasn't working, obviously I wasn't getting paid, and it was eye-opening how challenging it was financially with 6 weeks off work, So I didn't want that to be an issue again, so I became focused on that. And because of my, background in church and service and stuff like that, I decided, and we talked about this at the beginning of this session. So I am a young man, I'm a black man, I'm a Christian, I'm a doctor. So who better to talk to people about, maybe you should check your blood pressure, maybe you should, look at your stroke risk factors, because especially in the communities that I represent, some of these things. We're not having these conversations. You're not necessarily having conversations with your boys when you're playing poker about their blood pressure, or even in church about taking care of your health and stuff like that. So, again, as much as I'm introspective, I'm not like a navel gazer. I didn't spend lots of time or like, oh, why did this happen to me? And why have I had a stroke? And that's not my thing. So I basically I was like, well, this is where I am. What can I do? What's the next
Mm.
step? I started a few YouTube channels under different guises just to like speak to people in the communities that I represent and say, you know, um, how can I with my story help your life get better by making you aware of things that you might not have really thought about before. So I started talking about health. I started talking about blood pressure. I started talking about stroke risk and things like that. And the funny thing was is that people would come to me and be like, "Oh, oh, I've got high blood pressure too," and I'm like, "Why are you whispering?" There's a thing in certain communities about
Yeah.
shame when it comes to speaking about health. One of my aunties was like, well, in the village, where we all originated from, maybe you didn't want to broadcast your illness because um, your enemy would now know where to poke you. So you always had a sense of bravado. Um, I've got a question from Philippe. Do men ever talk about their emotional struggles with each other? That's a very, very good question, Philippe. I think the answer is men talk more than you think. I just think that we need a space. So I think that there's a lot to get a man to talk. Men have to feel safe in a way that maybe women don't have the same thing. So I'll give the example. A friend of mine had a stag do and we were at a restaurant and we were talking, and actually there was 20 men who were just talking about being a man and being a husband and being a father. And honestly, the conversation really warmed my heart. Now, if there would have been some women there, maybe we wouldn't have gone in depth about it. And if we hadn't created the space, maybe we wouldn't have gone. So I hear what you're saying, Philippe. I just think that we need to create the spaces. There's a guy that I'm connected with on LinkedIn called Jesse, who's got an organization called Thursday Night Jollof, which is in London, and basically he owns a barber shop. And every Thursday they just have a session where people come in, they eat, and men talk. So I think Philippe, I think it's about the spaces rather than an inept or an innate ability for men not to talk. Thank you for your comment, Sakinat. You guys are amazing. Sakinat again, lamentation, self, no problem. So yeah, back to me. I was like, well, so what I'm going to do? How am I going to use this? Now, I credit my parents a lot for the spaces that they grew me up in. So my mentality was like, even some of the preaching that I'd heard in church, I'm thinking about titles like "Don't waste a good crisis." Something bad things are going to happen to everybody, and if you are an immature person, what is likely to happen is that you're going to think, why did this happen to me? And that's what your rest of your life or that period is going to be defined by. And I thank God that my parents are like, we're not going to do that. We're going to learn about pushing through the valley of the shadow of death and the valley of back. I'm not going to make my home here emotionally. The stroke happened to me past tense. It's not happening to me indefinitely. So how do I make the best of my life? So that's kind of where I was, and I started getting involved with organizations like the Caribbean African Health Network, and started to put out there. And um, one of the things I did was I wrote a book. Now, the reason for the book was I'm a great starter and I'm not a great finisher. At least I wasn't. And I wanted to be able to say that I'm going to start something, I'm going to finish it. And the book is called Building Blocks. Now, again, 2020, I had a stroke and my dad died. So I felt derailed. I felt like I was on a ship on the or a boat rather on the storm on a sea of the storms of life, just at the mercy, and I had no oars. And there were things that I had to do mentally to put myself back in the position where I realized, no, actually, no, I can set the direction of travel.
Mm.
I can set the goal, and actually, I'm the engine. And so a lot of those thoughts, and because I fell deep into or rather dove deep into personal development, and mindset became a really big thing for me. So there were the book is the subtitle is Thoughts You Need to Think on Your Way to Building a Life of Your Dreams. I became intentional about my life in a way that I don't think I'd been before. And in this journey, maybe a bit of financial literacy and writing a book and encouraging people, I became aware of coaching, and the knowledge industry. And I think most of my life, I would call it, I've had a bit of an older brother complex. So what I mean, I'm the kind of guy that if most people don't have the thing to say, "Oh, bro, don't walk down that road. There's snakes down there." But I'm not that guy. I'm like, "Don't walk down that road." Or people might come to me and ask me questions and stuff. And I've been leading groups like cell groups and most of my adult life. So all of that stuff in terms of nothing being wasted, that was just already in me. And when I heard about coaching and the ability to sit down and talk to people and help them realize the value that's already in them and the thing that they and help them validate their decisions and help them see their own worth. I naturally gravitated towards that because I felt like I suppose I hadn't had the vocabulary to name that this is what I was doing anyway.
Mm.
When I'm on a ward round, I'm like, it's the kind of thing I'm doing. Oh, this patient. Okay, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do that? And I even in medical school, I was never the guy. Like medical school, there's a lot of bravado. Give me the five causes of clubbing, and you stand up and you always this and this and this. And that. Like when you ask me the question, if I don't know, I don't know. Like I never had any of that. Um, in spades, and I was the kind of person, the registrar and the consultant, to talk to my resident doctor colleagues about this is hard. This is emotionally hard, and you have to deal with it, and it doesn't get easier when you can become a consultant. So it became apparent to me that I was coaching anyway, you
Yeah.
know. So let me just officialize it and start talking to people.
How did you deal with people that weren't as open as you were about, saying how they really felt?
Are we talking peers or
Like I'm just thinking about in, the medical culture,
yeah, yeah.
in terms of, yeah, your peers.
I think because I think it is slightly different if we're talking about peers or like resident colleagues. So I think when it's peers, I think it depends. I'm very much like when it comes to being able to speak truth to power or say something to somebody, there's probably a threshold that mine is lower to say than other people. However, I'm also conscious of like if this person isn't in a position where they feel open to stuff, it- um, I'm not going to. There's a phrase in the Bible about casting your pearls before swine. I'm not calling them swine. I'm saying there are some people where timing is an issue. So even if I might have gone through exactly what they're going through and have a framework for dealing with it, if they're not open to talking to me about it, then it might be a case of I wait for an opportunity where they become open or just allow them. It's difficult because I think that even in our conversations with patients, medicine at time was very paternalistic. Here's a problem. As a doctor, I'm telling you this. That's never really been my approach for patients. And when it comes to friends, I feel like there has to be an open door of access. So somebody has to let me know that they're open to having these kinds of conversations. And there are people that have, and we've had some really deep conversations, and there are people that haven't. And as a consequence, even if I feel like I can help, maybe the door is closed. And I think with resident doctors and more junior colleagues, I think I like to lead by example. So I'm very much like, okay, this was hard. This I was scared about this. This challenged me because I think I want to model the vulnerability so that it becomes normalized for them.
Mm, mm. And just go back to 2019, very tough year with the stroke and your dad
2020,
died.
2020, yeah.
The 2020,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What was the kind of like turning point for you when you changed the mindset to start using that for good? Like what was it? Can you remember if there was one?
Yeah, good question. To be honest with you, I think, I mean, obviously, the stroke was pretty uh, tectonic. But to be honest with you, after the stroke, I was just like, okay, when am I getting back to work? I think my dad dying really um, forced me to um, ask some really fundamental questions. I love my dad. My relationship with him wasn't all that I wanted it to be, and the fact that he wasn't able to then be there for me to resolve some of these issues, because he was a great man and he was human. So maybe there were some ways in which that I would have now been able to have conversations with him that I probably wasn't mature enough for then. So I had to find those kind of answers somewhere else. There was a phrase that I grew up with, God doesn't have any grandchildren. And it's talking about the fact that a lot of people who grow up in church or their parents have a faith can hang on to the coattails of their beliefs just because it's what their mum and dad said. And I've never believed that. But obviously my dad's not even here anymore. So there were some really fundamental, really simple questions that I
Mm,
had to make sure that I answered. And I think the natural, because of my upbringing, the natural way to then channel this new resolution I had was, okay, so how can I help people? Because that's what my family has modeled for years.
yeah, amazing, amazing. So you kind of were forced to ask yourself those questions. Were they questions that you had always hoped to have the opportunity, and then it was kind of like that's removed now.
Yeah.
So
I think
you were
I think again because I'm pretty introspective most of the time. I think probably again because this has been a whistle stop tour in 2016, 17 to 2019 I had a really tough time at work. Really tough time. And sometimes when you're in a situation where time is tough, your vision narrows and it can become difficult to see what else is out there. So think about situational awareness. So I moved hospital. That was part of the reason. And obviously my dad died. So now I'm like shocked into, okay, being present. There's a degree to which I think that's got something to do with it, but I also think that there is a periodic re-asking of all these questions anyway. So, I'm mid 40s now, and the question, who am I, is a different answer than when I was in my mid 30s and in my mid 20s. And I think that um, because I like to think of myself as a deep thinker, I suppose I'm kind of always asking myself these questions. There are some things that, I've settled, um, and there might some things that I might be able to embellish my mental picture of that issue, who I am, what do I have to give, what is my role in my family, in my life, at work. All of those things, I believe, I am becoming present tense, even if I have an answer, past tense. I know you didn't ask me, but how did I get into comics?
oh
So
yeah,
when
comic real coaching guy.
yeah, exactly. When I was studying for my A levels in Manchester, I used to go to the Central Library in the middle of town, and I would study, and I knew that you couldn't study for hours and hours and hours without a break. So I would go to the children's section, and I think I started reading Asterix comics. And then I slowly gravitated to, graphic novels like DC and Batman, DC and Marvel and stuff. And yeah, that was my break. So I'm not like a hardcore geek and have like all the stuff, but that was my introduction to it. And I really liked the fact that they dealt with real issues.
Yeah.
Um, and for instance, I'm with you. I didn't really like Batman. I liked Superman because, and this is my theory about why they keep getting Superman wrong in films. The point of Superman was because he's an allegory of Christ. Superman could just destroy everything because he's the strongest being in the universe. However, the thing that makes him Superman is his choices. He consistently made good choices, and therefore he was an aspirational character. I wanted to be like him. Does that make sense? Rather than, or it'd be nice to have powers. It was more than that. So that's why I like Superman. I'm just seeing some comics. Dr. Ellen, where can you get my book? If you search Ayo Olatoye building blocks on Amazon, you can get it. But I'll send the link, and it's actually on my LinkedIn profile. And Emma, you said, "I love how you're modeling this to residents. You're part of the change that needs to happen." That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Um, was there any other? Does anybody
Uh,
have any questions for Dr. Lewis or I? Those of you who are listening, before we move on to backroom real coaching and stuff. In fact, why
Well,
don't we
does
do that?
anyone have any question, anything they want to say about how their favorite comic superhero or resonate with anything we've said?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I actually wanted to say about Superman as well is that just that that the fact that he is so strong and appears
yeah,
so strong, but has this kryptonite weakness
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is another one of the things that I just like naturally resonated with as
yeah,
a kid having sickle cell and just being normal and being able to do everything and then
yeah,
boom in hospital just flat out.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
as whenever I watch Superman go through that, it just gave me so much like I was like, wow, like he's so strong, but he still has this like immense weakness.
yeah,
And I think finding those kind of characters to relate to is really something that's like really powerful. Having those role models to connect with.
absolutely, absolutely. So, how did we arrive at real coaching? How did we do that? Um, for me, I have always been fascinated with this idea of movie wisdom. The idea that, just like we said, the comics deal with real issues, and whether it's art imitating life or life imitating art, I am always looking for the lesson. I'm always looking for what can I learn. Always, like I don't look at even comics or cartoons or I don't look at them just for the that's nice. I'm looking for and because I believe it's there. Disney's been trying to tell us that we are special for for a number of years. So I had an idea about um conversations about, well, what kind of life lessons can we get from comics? Because I do think that people probably don't um realize the wealth of wisdom that you can get from these things. And then I came across your content on LinkedIn, and I was like, I think this guy's a kindred spirit. And then I saw a number of your posts, and you'd put some stuff on. You'd used either it was MCU stuff, and we had a conversation, and I noticed there was like a poster bit behind behind you, and I was like, again, I think this guy. I think this is the one. So we had a conversation about the idea for pulling wisdom from a hero's journey, and this is where we are. So that's my version of it. So Lewis, why don't you say your version?
Yeah, I kind of knew that. I remember saying to my wife, like, I feel like this guy is like me. Like, because I was like, I never thought I would find someone else who is it was that the whole idea of talking about movie scenes and the wisdom in like comics and superheroes. I was, as soon as you like mentioned it, I was like, this is exactly the kind of idea that I would have. And I think I'd even like thought about it at some point and then just forgot. So so yeah, I think I also read one of your posts where you'd referenced a movie, and
Yeah.
I was like, yes, someone's talking about it. We're
Yeah.
talking about something that I can like really like engage with and like.
Yeah.
So so yeah, the whole hero's journey like aspect of it is just a story that is just endless. It's always occurring in like so many different
Yeah.
contexts, and
Absolutely.
I think because we just both have like such passion for the characters in comic books and superheroes in general, and just using them to kind of teach lessons and
Yeah. Yeah.
like gain wisdom from is just such a cool idea
Yeah.
that's just different, and it feels like something that it's just a lot more enjoyable, a lot more enjoyable way because it's what we're doing anyway, isn't it,
Yeah,
really?
exactly. Exactly. We would have had these conversations without a recording, just
Yeah.
just talking about Tony Stark and other things. So we're very grateful that people have been coming along for the journey, and we would be very interested in any sort of feedback, whether on LinkedIn or DM or whatever, just to tell us what you've enjoyed, what you haven't enjoyed, if you want more, or whether, this is enough now. All of that would be really much appreciated. And for anybody who is thinking about starting a podcast or doing something live on LinkedIn, we wanted to talk to you about like some of the back room stuff. I mean,
Technicalities.
you've done the heavy lifting in that department, Lewis. Why don't you take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you just have to accept that it's gonna like go wrong, and give yourself time to like set up the stream. I don't know like how, if you're completely new to streaming,
Yeah,
then it can be like a lot to take in, like different streaming platforms, and then LinkedIn Live is not the most intuitive. Um, and and yeah, I think for me, it was difficult as well because this is my first time kind of speaking like on a live stream. I've never done this before. So thank you, yeah. But it's just been great. It's just this we've just I've just kind of approached it with the same kind of mentality as, you're growing, you're pushing
yeah,
yourself out of your comfort zone and
absolutely.
learning new things,
Yeah,
um and yeah, I've managed to get through it and learn all these technical skills which go into
absolutely. Yeah,
streaming, which I won't bore you with.
yeah,
But that was it added to the pressure a lot of things like trying to like start on time,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then the delay as well in
yeah.
terms of just yeah, everything. I remember when we had like the mics, um, and the sound was coming through on the stream, and then it was also coming through on the actual thing, and there
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
delay, and I was just kind of like, oh my God, what's going on? There's too much going on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of craziness behind the scenes,
Yeah,
which is quite difficult to explain to
yeah,
anyone
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And at one point, like my Wi-Fi went because my wife plugged out the thing accidentally, the Wi-Fi router.
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah, if you learn anything, then you don't have to have it all together before you
absolutely.
start streaming
Absolutely.
or podcasts.
Yeah.
Like these things can happen, things that
Yeah.
go wrong, and it's not that
Absolutely.
big
And
a deal.
it's a testament to, LinkedIn because we met on LinkedIn. It's a testament to like-mindedness. And I think it's a testament for one of the phrases I started to think about. when I started to help people was encouraging people to live as big a life as possible. I think that if we're not careful, life and circumstances and failures will pressure you or tempt you or whatever word you want to use to live small and to live like cocooned. Um, and I would advocate against not against doing that because so I give you an example. So I wrote a book. That's a story in itself. I wrote a book, and by God's grace, I've got very good feedback from the book. It's been an inspiration to people. And my son is 10, was 10 at the time, and he wrote a book and published it on Amazon. And when he was asked, why did you write a book? He's like, because daddy did, you know. And um, for me, even if no one else ever reads the book, and it gets blocked by Amazon, the fact that something that I did put my son in a position where it was possible for him to become a published author by 10, something that some people have struggled to do into their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I was just blown away by that. So I would always encourage people, like, you don't know what the knock-on effects are going to be by really uh, living your life to the fullest potential. Somebody might look at you and be like, okay, because Lewis can do it, I think I can do it as well. Oh, these guys did a stream. Yeah, I can do a podcast. I can do this. I can start a business. I can do coaching. So again, and it might be that coaching is the thing that gives you the metal on the inside to say you can do it. And Lewis and I are both at your disposal if you wanted to engage and have those kinds of conversations. But I would always say, live as big a life as you can, because you don't know what's on the other end of it. We've had some comments. So Sakinat says, very inspiring discussion. I'm listening with my daughter, and she says she wants more. So we've got one fan. Lewis.
That's really nice to hear. That's
Yeah,
really
thank you very much for that. I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Emma says, I love your lives. I love my life as well. Uh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emma. And Dr. Ellen says, thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey and its lasting impact. Well, thank you guys for being here live with us and coming on the journey with us. So like honestly, guys, because for us I suppose this would be the end of season one. If you have enjoyed it, and if you think that these kinds of conversations resonate with you, or that you would want more, or even if you have suggestions on what you'd like us to talk about, please get in touch. Both Lewis and I are um, very, very, very interested in the feedback and want to make this conversation and these conversations as useful and impactful and full of value as possible. So Lewis Dr. Ellen says she definitely wants more, so that's two. Um,
Yeah, I just want to say thank you everyone for listening and just being here with us. And it's just really nice to have this opportunity to use our creative passions
mm,
to actually help people. So yeah, if you want to continue joining us, then please give us some feedback. Please tell us what you want us to talk about.
yeah,
And this is what we're here to do. We're here to serve and help people and just kind of just be ourselves. And I really want to thank you as well, Ayo, for giving me this opportunity and bringing me into um the fold. Yeah,
you're a
it's
natural,
been
sir. You're a
fun.
natural, sir. Thank you for humoring me and coming along the journey. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, so those of you who are listening on YouTube, and those of you who are listening after the fact on LinkedIn, please, please, please please repost, please share, please comment, because that is a way to tell the algorithm that people are really interested in, and it gets this kind of stuff out to more people. So I suppose for some time this will be us. Thank you very much, Dr. Ayo Olatoye, my esteemed colleague.
Dr. Lewis Thomas.
and